Anti-Israel policies or anti-Texas policies. It really is insane how Republicans manage to juggle this when the whole premise of Make America Great Again, America First is kind of like undercut a little bit by the fact that they are more slavishly loyal to Israel than they are anything in America, including America itself. The city of San Marcos proposed that money that was flowing from the city to Israel instead be used to fix the city's problems itself. Israel is a stalwart ally of the United States and a friend to Texas, have repeatedly made clear that Texas will not tolerate anti-Semitism, anti-Israel policies, or anti-Texas policies. Over a year ago, following Hamas's cowardly attack, campus disruption, terrorism, blah, 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 blah. 12K likes, 13K comments, a lot of which are from Nazis, but it does go to show how unpopular the slavish loyalty to Israel is within Republicans. A lot of the people pushing back on it are from Nazis because they tend to, they're all over Twitter now, especially. The proposed resolution seems calculated to violate this law by calling for San Marcos to limit its commercial relations with Israel. Specifically, the resolution identifies $4.4 million that came from San Marcos residents' taxes that was sent to Israel. It then calls for the reallocation of such local funds away from Israel's military and towards essential domestic priorities. It is difficult to believe that a city so carefully accounting for every dollar flowing to Israel and determined to reallocate those funds as a self-described embargo on our ally is, at the same time, requiring written verification from its contracting partners that they will not boycott Israel. This public expression of a desire to do what state law prohibits is unacceptable. Basically, Greg Abbott is saying, we have made it against the law to boycott Israel in Texas. You are not allowed to not do business with Israel on principle. And by suggesting that money raised from the town's residents go to the town itself rather than to Israel, you are proposing a boycott of Israel by not paying for their military. And this is anti-Semitic. I took a look at the comments earlier. It's mostly Nazis saying shit about like the USS Liberty. It's crazy how bad Nazis are at advocating for what are supposed to be their own positions, you know? You have like, this is a gift to Nazis. This is the most like JQ like shit you could possibly read into as a Nazi. It's like, so like, it's a joke. It's like a parody. It's like what, like if not like Nazis could have written this to further the Nazi conspiracy theory of the JQ, you know? But rather than hop on that on its principles, they're like dancing Israelis, you know, because they're morons. Why would taxes from a town even go to a foreign country in the first place? Taxes from every American go to Israel. Speaking of Israel, some good news. By the way, got released. By the way, yeah, I heard that. Good for him. Hopefully it sticks. Do Americans have free cards, or does every American have to pay taxes? If you're very wealthy, you don't have to pay taxes. There was a huge rally outside the courthouse for Greg Abbott, or what? Thanks for that long explanation. I'll try to see if I can find that video in Vosh. The reason why Republicans and often a lot of Democrats are so slavishly loyal to Israel is because all politicians in America, or almost all of them, are influenced by lobbyists, by people who really control the country. The real like power within a country is determined by its economic flow, right? Corporations employ people, companies, contracts, money moving around, everything flows according to them. Businesses are guided and regulated by the government, but even like these days, not even so much. Money is where power comes from, right? Where this is a capitalist economy. It's not like a feudal state where it's possible that a king, by virtue of their right, can have more real power than a very wealthy merchant. And as a consequence of that, there are pools of sort of collected capital interest that governments and politicians just will not challenge. A big one in America is healthcare. There is so much money flowing around healthcare, pharmaceuticals, health insurance, whatever else, that even Democrats, when they attempt to lightly reform it, do so with the daintiest of gloves. Israel's another one. And the reason for that is because Israel has a bunch of long-standing partnerships with our defense companies and with our law enforcement lobbyist firms. Basically everything having to do with surveillance, crime, punishment, war. We have very close ties with Israel. And with the IDF. And there's a lot of money wrapped up in that. And those businesses, the businesses that are associated with the military industrial complex, have more power proportional to the money that flows through them because they control, you know, national security. Like at Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, these companies are capable of, on their own, basically crippling the United States. There are policies that they could engage in, actions they could take that would meaningfully weaken us in ways far greater than something that, say, Amazon could do. If Amazon became antagonistic to the United States, it could be pretty well dealt with, though it would be disruptive. But if the military-industrial complex wanted to really turn its heels, that'd be bad. And they have very close connections with us through the Pentagon. One of the reasons why Pentagon spending never seems to go down. It just goes up and up and up and up and up and up and up. Where does that money go to? Well, a lot of it we can't track, right? The Pentagon fails all of its audits, but we know most of it goes to private-public partnerships in the form of military contracting. The government exists in that sense as a way of funneling public wealth, that is to say the taxes they raise from you, into private corporations. When people say the Iraq war cost $10 trillion, what they really mean is the government gave $10 trillion to private companies in order to facilitate the war. Paid for guns, a lot of it went to soldiers' salaries, but overwhelmingly it went to public-private contracts. It went to replenishing our stock of arms, weaponry, and machinery following the war. Who did we pay for that? Private companies. It's just a way of transferring money around. Anyway, the reason Israel gets this pass is because it's actually really, really difficult in the modern world, which is more peaceful than ever before, more or less, give or take. It's really difficult to get American voters on board with we should give like infinite financial leeway to a small set of shady companies that control our defense spending. So it's easier to attach a social cause to it, right? The biggest expansion of the Pentagon in like the earlier days of the Department of Defense real rise to prominence was through World War II. During World War II, which was before the Pentagon was actually built, by the way, the physical building itself, we massively expanded the Department of Defense. Why? It was World War II. We had shit to do, man. And that was a pretty good excuse to expand the Department of Defense. Did the DoD shrink after World War II? No. In fact, initial expansions to the Department of Defense were made in ugly wood frame buildings because they were expected to be torn down. They literally built out office buildings for the Department of Defense contractors, made them ugly and temporary in the hopes that would incentivize them being torn down after, because the Department of Defense wasn't meant to stay that big. But it did. Yes, sir. Anyway, yeah, I guess what I'm saying is it's just a way of attaching a social cause to the expansion of the DoD. Well, U.S. defense spending's been going down since the Cold War. Yeah, but they're trying to correct that. That's the whole thing I'm talking about. During the Cold War, you have an excuse for infinite military spending because there was another superpower we were competing with. Since then, our excuses for military engagement have been pathetic. The Iraq and Afghanistan wars, like, ridiculous. Why are we, like, they were like very transparent efforts of transferring wealth. Not to say the Korean War is more complicated, but not to say the Vietnam War was necessarily justified. It definitely wasn't, but it was in the context of a greater Cold War, which did lend more credibility to the existence of the Department of Defense and all the contracts that it had, you know, broadly. Nowadays, we got to fight for justifications. Why exactly do we need to give infinite money to the DoD? Israel's under attack. Well, we're not under attack, right? Like, America's sitting pretty. So we need to have another crazy country full of ethno-nationalist genociders constantly starting fights in the Middle East and being attacked because they start fights and escalating and escalating, and we're going to bomb Iran. We're going to do everything, you know, bomb the Houthis, bomb Lebanon, whatever, just bomb people. Who cares? Violate every ceasefire, kill people. Who cares? Because they're crazy, and their craziness keeps perpetual war going. And as long as the perpetual war is going, we can justify the ongoing partnerships and expenses. Oh, and in case you were wondering, Trump has proposed the greatest DoD budget in modern history for the upcoming budgetary period. A flat trillion. This would be like if the U.S. was totally cucked to Rhodesia. Yeah, basically. It's basically exactly like that, yeah. It would be like if instead of divesting from it, the United Kingdom was like, actually, like, Rhodesia must stand no matter what. We can't let this shit become Zimbabwe. We're gonna, like, we aren't holding up our own empire anymore, so we need to justify the expenditures by, like, framing it in the context of the attacks done on Rhodesia, which are entirely their fault because they're a white supremacist, you know, playground. You get me. Sorry. Long ramble, but you get me. Anyway, that's the reason why Democrats and Republicans just constantly dance around the subject of Israel, or like ignore obvious reality about Netanyahu being an antagonistic entity to the United States, about like the genocide. Like, all of it is done because of these pre-existing contracts, basically. I don't know, it just feels suspect the MIC has that much power over the government or Congress when the Trump administration has resulted in a huge crash to their stock values. For one, wealthy, powerful business magnates often do stuff that's contrary to the interests of their stock prices, right? Like, Tesla's crashed. Elon's right there in the White House. You know, you can't assume they're operating rationally. For two, the MIC's real wealth isn't in speculative value. It's in cash. When the Pentagon has a contract with the MIC, they're paying for it with our tax dollars. Our tax dollars are cash. That's the real economy. The Lockheed Martin isn't some bullshit Silicon Valley firm that lives or die. They're not loss leaders. They don't live or die based on the value of their, you know, the future, you know, estimated stock price or anything like that. They use real money. They spend real money and they make real money. Billions, hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars of real money. It gives them power that things like Tesla or Amazon don't necessarily have, though Amazon does control a lot in terms of real value. Is it just me, or was Elon booted out of the inner circle recently? To an extent, yeah, it seems like he's held in less favor. But like, if your argument is that the MIC doesn't control that much because the people who purport to represent the MIC are breaking everything, I would point to all of human history as an example of how that's not contradictory. Like, you know, that's just how it is, right? Yeah, Amazon's real power is in the infrastructure that it controls, not in the stock price of Amazon. I just found out Israel gave military support to Rhodesia. Game cease game. They really? During the 1970s, Israel sold weapons and military equipment to the white government of Rhodesia during the Bush War, eventually granting them a license to manufacture their own. Game recognized game. Yeah, they did it to apartheid South Africa, too. Israel is such an evil country, dude. It's crazy. Given that we don't have to appeal to some anti-dem narrative, can we acknowledge Israel is a rogue state? And even if Trump threatened to embargo, they would just ignore it. Well, if Trump threatened to embargo Israel, his cabinet would tell him, okay, we're going to do that, and then they wouldn't do it, and everything would stay the same. But no, Israel's for sure a rogue state. Israel is convenient because their insanity manufactures a pretext for military investment. But the people who run Israel, you know, Netanyahu, his war cabinet, are actually insane. They're not a bunch of like scheming businessmen or whatever. They're psychopaths. They're Nazis. They're like the Nazis drove their own country to ruin. They had like close ties with the German military industrial complex. Obviously, they directly controlled it through their public-private partnerships. But like obviously, they're willing to run the world into the ground because they're insane ethno-nationalist freak ideologues.